back to the second video lecture of history. Now children, we are going to move on with our topic, that is historiography development in the West. In the last lecture, we have studied different sources of history, and in the end of the video, we have studied about the traditions of historiography. In this lecture, we are going to move on with what is called as modern historiography. So children, let's get going. Modern historiography, children, has four characteristics. See children, in early days, whatever man didn't understand, whatever, for example, if there is a forest fire and man is not understanding what is the reason behind this forest fire, then man used to link it with some divine phenomenon. Whatever reason man did not understood, man started to relate it to the divine phenomenon, that there might be some god, some miraculous power in the universe which would have created this. So this was the mentality of man in very, very ancient times. But when we talk about modern historiography, we have four characteristics which tell us that in the modern historiography, scientific study has its a good stronghold when we study modern historiography. So children, coming to the four characteristics of modern historiography, I would like to tell you that the first characteristic is that this modern historiography or the modern way for historical research is based on scientific principles and formation of relevant questions. Now what does this mean? That means you will not put any kind of imaginary theory in your historical research. Rather, you will base it on scientific principles. And how are you going to do that? That you will do by formation of relevant questions. Now what do you mean by formation of relevant questions? See children, these relevant questions has a word which is called as hypothesis. These relevant questions can be expressed in one single word which is called as hypothesis. Now what is all this? See children, don't get confused. It is very, very easy, and within a few minutes from now, you are going to understand all the four characteristics very clearly and very beautifully. Alright? So let's move on. Now formation of relevant questions. Suppose, now you all are familiar with the Lonar Lake. Everybody knows the Lonar Lake. Many of you have visited also. Right? Now children, if we are going to conduct a historical research on the formation of Lonar Lake, that how was the Lonar Lake formed? Alright, so from which point of time or how is that we are going to begin this research? There needs to be a starting point, right? Which will give direction to our study. So that starting point is what? That starting point is hypothesis or relevant question. Now for example, you form a question that was the Lonar Lake formed because of some volcanic activity? Or you can form another question like, was the Lonar Lake formed because of the earthquake? Or another question like, was the Lonar Lake formed because of some meteorite coming on the earth? Alright, so any of these three you can take it as a relevant question, and then it will give a way to your research. In the end, as you are going to find answer to this hypothesis that you have formed in the beginning of your research, as you are going on with your research, in the end when you will come to the conclusion, either your question, your relevant question will become true or your relevant question will become false. And this is how your research will be carried out on the basis of scientific principles and not in an imaginative way. Very clear? Now, second characteristic of modern historiography is questions are anthropocentric. What do you mean by anthropocentric? The meaning of this word anthropo means human. Now tell me, now try to guess what is anthropocentric? Yes, you're right. Anthropocentric is revolving around human life and human actions and human deeds. Alright. That means you will not connect your historical research with any other divine phenomenon or any other miraculous power or god-like thing or nothing like that. Alright, whatever historical research that you are doing, it will revolve around human life, human actions, human deeds, and particularly human history. That will be your second characteristics. Coming to the third characteristic, children, answers to these questions are supported by reliable evidence. Answers to which questions? The questions that we have framed at the beginning of our research, right? The answers which you are finding to these questions, it will be supported by a reliable evidence. That means when you are finding out the answers, it would be written in certain treatise, certain book, certain travelogue, which was written at that particular time when the lunar lake was formed. Very clear? So this is how the answers will not be self-created answers, but the answers will be supported by reliable evidence, reliable historical evidence for that matter. Alright, now coming to the fourth and the last characteristic is that historiography will always present, or I would like to make a correction over here, not historiography, rather modern historiography will always present a graph of mankind's journey. Always present a graph of mankind's journey. Look children, right from the Stone Age man we are studying history, and slowly we see the progress of the Stone Age man. Earlier he used to live in the jungles, he was a hunter-gatherer, he did not know how to grow his food, then he discovered fire, then he started to live in groups, then he started to protect himself, then he learned how to grow his own food. Are you understanding what I am trying to tell you? I am trying to tell you the way man progressed step by step. So in the same way, modern historiography will always present a graph of mankind's journey, a graph of progress of mankind's journey. So these are the four characteristics of modern historiography. Let's take a quick revision. First characteristic is that modern historiography will always be based on scientific principles which will ask relevant questions. Second characteristic is what? That questions will be anthropocentric, revolving around human life. Third is what? The answers to the questions will be supported by reliable evidence. And fourth is what? Last one is what? That presents the modern historiography will always present a graph of mankind's journey. So we have a quick revision of all the four characteristics. Now let's move on to the next part, that is, how did the word history come up? Who was the person who was behind the creation of the word history? Very simple children, history is a Greek word. So origin of history you will find in Greek. So it's a Greek word, it was firstly used by Herodotus. Herodotus, who was he? Obviously he will be a Greek fellow, right? So Herodotus was a Greek historian who first used the word history in his book The Histories, right? So in his book he gave the title only with the help of this particular word history. So a quick look we have taken at the origin of the word history. Very clear? Now let us move on children. And the next part is the development of scientific perspective. I told you that in the early days when man was not knowing about, or he could not reason out why certain things are happening around him, he used to directly connect it with some divine phenomenon, that might be God is doing this, might be some divine power is doing this. Like for example, if man was not knowing why it rained, suddenly it started raining and man was not knowing that why it rained, and he could not figure out the reason behind the rain coming. So what he used to do, he used to directly connect it that, oh, God has made it rain. Am I making myself very clear? So this is how children, in early days it was a tendency of man to, if he could not reason out anything, directly connect it. But when we came to the 18th century, man started developing a scientific temper. Man started developing a scientific attitude. And how did this happen? Let us take a detailed look at it. Now, prior to 18th century, the word prior means what? Before. Alright. So, prior to 18th century, more interest of the historians also was in philosophical discourses. Philosophy and science, two different disciplines, completely different disciplines. Science has a reason for everything, and philosophy says that because it was a said thing yesterday, it is a said thing today. So, in early days, when we talk about the prior time before that of the 18th century, more interest of the people was in philosophical discourses and also in divine phenomenon. Now we have discussed many times what is a divine phenomenon. So scientific temper of the people at that time was not so developed that man could be able to reason out everything. But in the 18th century rather, we will say that certain people came up, certain scholars came up, children, who believed that there is a possibility of applying scientific method for finding out historical truths. So the scholars said that let us at least try to use certain scientific methods for finding out historical truths. There is a possibility of applying it, so let us try. If it is done, good. If it is not done, that's also alright. No loss in that. So, because of such scientific temper was developed in some scholars of the 18th century, then they carried on this tradition of including scientific study for historical research. So, because of such scholars, there was the establishment of Göttingen University in Germany. And what was so special about this university? The very special thing in this university was, children, for the first time, it was this University of Germany, the Göttingen University of Germany, that had an independent department of history. Rather, I would say an independent department for doing historical research based on scientific principles. Very clear? Yes. And once you know, when something new is undertaken by a particular university, and when the university is going on very successfully, obviously the other German universities are going to follow the pattern of Göttingen University, and that happened. Then other German universities also started having an independent department for historical research. So this is how slowly and steadily man moved on from philosophical base given to historical research, then slowly turned out it into a scientific base given to historical research. So from philosophical base to scientific base for historical research, man moved on like this. With the help of some scholars, then man developed a scientific temper, and this is how he moved on. Now, from a long time I am telling you about some scholars who made this attempt of including scientific methods of study in historical research. But who are these scholars? We need to know about these scholars who made such a remarkable change in historiography, right? Notable scholars. I want you to take a screenshot of the board behind me. I'll just excuse you for a second. Yeah. Now you might be wondering, why did I ask you to take a screenshot? See, children, a habit is there of our mind. The way it processes information should be it should be arranged in a particular way. Like, if I make you study or if I make you understand this notable scholars paragraph by paragraph, it will become very difficult for you to understand that and to learn that. Later on you have to write answers? No. Only understanding is not important. You have to memorize it also. You have to reproduce your answers in your papers as well. Right? So, this way, once you take a screenshot of this board, then you make the same table in your notebook. And what will happen because of this? All the 5 scholars here on the board, at one glance, you will be able to see all the important points of all the 5 important scholars. And how to make an answer out of it? Once you learn this table, once you understand and once your mind captures the image of this table behind me, then what will happen? If in the exam, if a question comes that please explain the class theory of Karl Marx. So, your mind will immediately start reminding, or it will start telling you, or it will this picture will come to your mind directly, and then with the help of this picture, with the help of this column, you can write the whole answer of your class theory. And this way, memorizing will become very fun, and learning and reproducing the answers will not be a tense job for you. Very clear, children? So now let us move on with the next part, that is notable scholars. Our first scholar is Ren Descartes. This scholar, the life period of this scholar is from 1596 to 1650 CE. Now, this scholar told us, now all these scholars, children, all these scholars, some and the other how they are talking about the application of scientific method to historiography. This is what they are telling us about. The different scholars are telling it in a different manner. Alright, so we will see step by step what these different scholars are telling us. Talking about Ren Descartes, he always insisted on verifying the reliability of historical documents. What do you mean by reliability, children? Reliability means dependability. आप कितना डिपेंड हो सकते हो उस डॉक्यूमेंट पे कि वो डॉक्यूमेंट सही है या वो डॉक्यूमेंट फेक नहीं है. Very clear. This means reliability. That means Ren Descartes always told us that whatever historical documents you are using for historical research, they should be reliable enough. The source from which you are taking the information, that source should be dependable, should be reliable. Alright. The next thing what Ren Descartes is telling us is that scientific method is very, very important when you are doing historiography. Don't do any kind of imagination. Don't bring in any other divine power. But you use scientific methods and carry on your historiography. Third thing, what he is telling us is that never to accept anything as a truth till all grounds of doubt are cleared. That means till all your doubts are cleared, all your doubts. Till that time you will not accept anything as a truth. Even if little question arises in your mind and it starts pricking or bothering you, that why this is so, you should ask that question, you should find an answer to that question, and only when all the answers are there in your lap, then only you should accept anything as a historical truth. Now, the book written by Ren Descartes is named as The Discourse on the Method. Very clear? We are very clear with our first scholar, that is Ren Descartes. Now moving on with our next scholar, that is Voltaire, and his life period is from 1694 to 1778. Now, what is Voltaire telling us? Voltaire is telling us that history is what? What is history? What is there in history? Right from the 3rd or 4th standard you have been studying history. So what are you actually studying? What you are studying about the past. Right? So are you studying about the past in a haphazard manner? Are you studying in a haphazard manner? Let's talk about, if we are talking about the modern history of India, that means the British period of India. Are you studying about the freedom struggle first and then the establishment of East India Company? No. You are studying the past in a sequence, in an order of events, and that is called as chronology of past events. Chronology means the sequence in which the events happened. So, what actually history is? Not only the study of the past, but the study of the past in a chronological order. Then, but he said that other aspects, yeah, it is correct that we study history according to the sequence of the events. But not only this, not only the events are important. When we study history, we should also study the other aspects of human life. That is, for example, economy, about the economy of that time, about what type of currency was there, what type of exchange system was there any medium, like was there any currency or was there barter system? Barter system, you know, goods exchanged for goods. When money was not in existence, children, that time people exchanged goods for goods. For example, there is a milkman and there is a person who is selling vegetables. Then the milkman would give milk to this person in exchange would give vegetables to the milkman. So when money was not there, this type of system, which is called as barter system, went on in the economy. So Voltaire is telling us that don't only study about the past events and their sequence, but at the same time you should also study about economy. You should also study about the trade at that time. You should also study about the agricultural practices. You should also study about the traditions of the people at that time. For example, when we are studying about the Stone Age man's life, that time we should also study the traditions which the Stone Age man used to follow. Then, he said that all these aspects of human life, that means don't only study the events one after the other, but study human life from 360 degrees. Study all other aspects of human life. This is what Voltaire told us. Then that is why, because of this thought, because of this new angle of historiography what he gave us, he is called as the father of modern historiography. Very clear, children? No, none of the book of Voltaire is mentioned in your syllabus, so no need to worry about it. Very clear? Now let us move on to the third thinker. This person is very interesting, children, and the theory which he gave, that is also very interesting. So we'll move on to the next one, that is George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel. His life period is from 1770 to 1831. Now, what this fellow said? He said that history should be presented in a logical manner. How? कैसे भाई, कैसे present करें logical manner में? जॉर्ज भाई कह रहे मैं हूं ना, I'll tell you how to present. We'll come to it later on when we'll study his theory. That time we'll come on to the point that what is the actual meaning of this logical manner. So next thing what he told us is that presentation of history will change over time as new evidences will come up. The way history was presented in the 50th or in the in the 18th or in the 15th or in the 16th century, today in the 21st century maybe we are having different methods of presenting history. Why? Because new evidences would have come up, new things would have been discovered. That is why the presentation of history is going to change over time. It is subjected to change over time. This is what George Hegel is telling us. Now we come to his theory. Before we come to it, we'll just come to a short thing what he has told us. He has told us that historical methods and scientific methods, different, right? I told you historical study, or in the first lecture I also told you the difference between scientific research and social science research. Yes? So even these methods are different. The way we do research in social science is completely different than the way we do research in science, right? But George Hegel said that although the methods are different, they are equally important. Both the methods are equally important. You cannot say that your historical methods are just stupid ways and our scientific methods are, very important. No, but both the scientific and historical methods are equally important, although they are different from each other. Very clear? Now, George Hegel told us about a theory called as dialectics. Dialectics. What does this mean? Now see, the word dia suggests us of something that is two. Okay, the word dia tells us about something that is two. Alright, now see, a situation like if a small child in your house is told ki beta not to speak lies, right? You should always speak the truth. You should always speak the truth. Why? Because it is good to speak the truth. You will not get caught in any unfavorable situation if you are always speaking the truth, right? But only if you explain this much, that beta always speak truth, he will understand it, but he will not understand it completely. Alright, but if you explain to him the reverse situation, that बेटा अगर सच नहीं बोलोगे, अगर झूठ बोलोगे तो तुम फंस जाओगे, फिर तुम्हें बचाने हम कैसे आएंगे, right? So in this way, if a small child is explained कि बेटा अगर opposite situation आपको फंसा सकती है, तो it is very important that you have to speak the truth, because lies is going to get caught, because of lies you are going to get caught somewhere. Very clear? So this George Hegel told us that dialectics is a method where you have to explain something by explaining the theory and the opposite situation. First you explain the situation and then you also explain the opposite situation. Because of this, what happened? Because of this, the actual situation will get fit in your mind forever and you will understand it rather in a much better way. So for the situation, whatever you want to explain, he called it the formation of thesis. The formation of thesis. And the exact opposite situation, it was called as antithesis, formation of antithesis. And when you study this thesis and antithesis, when you study both the situations, the situation and the opposite situation overall, and you come to a gist of it, then it is called as synthesis. And if in this way you will carry out your historiography, then things will become much better, things will become much more scientific. This is what George Hegel told us. And the book he has written, two books are there. First is Encyclopedia of Physical Sciences and second is Reason in History. Very clear? Now, Leopold von Ranke. Leopold von Ranke is our next scholar. He is saying that gathering information through original documents is more important. Now, this is sounding somewhat like Ren Descartes, because he also said that whatever documents or whatever sources of information you are using, they should be reliable. And Leopold is also telling you the same thing, that the documents from which you are gathering the information, the historical information, that document should be original ones, right? Then, not only documents should be original one, you have to examine it with great care. You have to handle those documents with great care. You have to go thoroughly through those documents, right? And then he's telling no addition or subtraction. When you are going through these historical documents, you should not add anything of your own into it. There should be no imaginative narration or creation of some imaginary things. Rather, you should examine it, and as it is, you should use it for your historiography. So, the books of Leopold von Ranke are The Theory and Practice of History and The Secret of World History. These two books are written by Leopold von Ranke, and his life period is from 1775 to 1886. Now, the last and the most important one, that is Karl Marx. Of course, all are important, but Karl Marx and his class theory are very famous and very well known. And his treatise, his book, see, all the books I have written in the bottom part of the board, but I had no place to write there. So Karl Marx, his book, his treatise is written on top, that is Das Kapital. Alright, so his treatise is also very famous, very well known. Now, Karl Marx also said the same thing what Leopold said. See, Leopold said there should be no imaginative narration of history. So Karl Marx also said no abstract ideas, no creation of your own, no creation of history. You should not create anything in your mind. Rather, whatever is there, you should study it and you should come to the truth. So, one important theory given by Karl Marx is called as class theory. Children, you don't find it very difficult. It is a quite simple theory. From the name, you might feel that what is this class theory now? This is something very complicated, but no. Very simple theory it is. Okay, you will like learning it. Alright, so now let us come to the class theory. Can you see here on the board there are two pictures which I have made? This lean fellow is a laborer, okay, and this fellow is a farmer. Now, laborer यानी मजदूर, farmer and laborer. So farmer has a land. Very correct. Both are humans. Both are living in the society. But farmer owns a land. Now, what is the importance of this land for the farmer? From this land, he can produce food crops. He can sell those food crops and he can earn money. But is the laborer having any land with him? Is he having anything where he can produce something, sell it and earn money? No. So what is there with him? Only his labor. He can work as a laborer in the land of this farmer, and this farmer can give him wages. This is how the laborer can earn money. So children, this land is a very important thing over here. And what is this land called? It is called as means of production. Means of production means a place from where you can produce something, and from selling that production, by the selling of that production, you can get money, you can earn money. So see children, in a society, what Karl Marx is saying is that in a society, there are different kinds of people, and there are some relationships between these people. And these relationships, because of two things. These relationships are because of the needs of the people and because of the means of production. Now, this farmer needs this laborer to work on his field, and this laborer needs a work for earning money. So both need each other. So because of this need, there is a relationship created between the farmer on one hand and the laborer on the other hand. Right? Now, accessibility to the means of production. That is, some people in the society have means of productions. Some people doesn't have means of production. So who will be rich and who will be poor? The people who have means of production will be rich, and the people who don't have any means of production will be poor. Very clear. Now because of this, because of having means of production and not having means of production, what is created? A divide is created. This man has become rich, this man has become poor. And because of this, what has been created? Class has been created. In the society, class has been created. Upper class, lower class. Right? And what Karl Marx is trying to say is that human history is all about this class struggle. This classes will always keep struggling. The upper class would always be wanting to exploit the members of the lower class, and the lower class will always want to come up, will always try to come up with that at par with that of the upper class. So this class struggle, the lower class trying to come up and the upper class trying to exploit the lower class, this class struggle is what is human history all about. This is what Karl Marx is telling us. So children, and his book already I told you, Das Kapital, a very famous treatise of Karl Marx. So children, this part of the video is telling you about all the notable scholars. I suggest you to take a screenshot of this blackboard and also to make a table, make a same table of it in your notebook, and so that you can revise this scholars, a big part of the chapter you can revise at one glance. Alright, now some revision questions I would like to give you. Yeah, the first question of this video lecture is, state the origin of the word history. I repeat, state the origin of the word history. Second one, when and where was the Göttingen University found? When and where was the Göttingen University founded? Third question, write the name of the book written by Ren Descartes. Write the name of the book written by Ren Descartes. Fourth question, what was the original name of Voltaire? What was the original name of Voltaire? Ninth question, which thought of Voltaire made him the founder of modern historiography? Which thought of Voltaire made him the founder of modern historiography? Next question, who insisted that historical reality should be presented in a logical manner? Just now we've done it, just now. Who insisted that historical reality should be presented in a logical manner? Next question, write the name of a well-known book of George William Frederick Hegel. Write the name of a well-known book of George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel. Next question, in which book are the lectures and articles of George William Friedrich Hegel published? I repeat, in which book are the lectures and articles of George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel published? Next question, write the names of the two books in which the articles of Leopold von Ranke are published. Write the names of the two books in which the articles of Leopold von Ranke are published. And the last question of this video lecture, name the most referred treatise of Karl Marx. I repeat, name the most referred treatise of Karl Marx. Alright children, in the next video lecture, we are going to finish with this lesson. Keep revising, keep learning, stay home, stay safe. Thank you.